All right, we are on the record, convening this week's meeting. This week is July 9th, 2004, of the Andover Charter Revision Commission. Present are myself, Karen Medor, Jody Gross, Jeff McGuire, Carol Lee. What did I miss?
Patricia Billings.
Thank you. Adrian is not present, and member of the public, we have Town Attorney Dennis O'Brien. All right, so we are called to order. The next item on the agenda is public speak. The only member of the public is the attorney, which I'm sure he's going to have plenty of time to speak in our next item. So we'll proceed on to, unless anybody on the commission has any public speak items that they wish to bring up. Okay, we'll proceed to approval of the minutes.
Let me, I mean,
Okay.
I do have one thing, and it relates to minutes, Bob. All the minutes are not posted on the town website. We have to get that done. That's not okay. So right now, we don't have the 5/28 minutes posted. We don't have the 6/25 minutes posted. And we're going to approve the 7/2 minutes, but we really should get those there, and especially the 6/25 one. And Carol, I thought I asked for that earlier this week. I'm not sure if I got it, maybe it went to a different email. I guess that one I need to look at, because that one had a lot of the motions that were passed. So I'm just saying that, Bob, that's just a housekeeping issue. They've got to go up on the town website.
Carol, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking and you're right. 25th is not up and we did send those over. So I will check tomorrow. I know that Kate's been real busy though with tax collection and that.
Well, we need to get someone to do that, Carol, because in my head, this is
Right.
hard. This is hard enough as it is for us. Imagine the public trying to follow what the heck we're doing.
Right.
So,
Right.
like I said, we have nothing posted for the 28th. We have the 6/4 one, we have the 6/11 one, we have the 6/18 one. We don't have the 6/25 up, and we have to get the 7/2 out to everybody and approved.
Okay. I will.
7/2, my apologies, 7/2. So,
yes. Realize it.
That was it. Now, Bob, you can go on. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, thank you, Jeff. That's important. Thank you for bringing it to the attention of the commission, and I'm sure Carol will get on Kate to post that stuff. All right, so item 3 then is approval of last week's minutes, which Carol took and circulated as a PDF document. Has everybody received that? Everybody have a copy of it? Okay. Anybody have any comments, additions, corrections?
Just as the only thing that was passed there, Carol, was the ordinance issue, and
right.
The email that I sent should be included in that. I at least in my head, because the way we did it is we sat there and said, "Oh, this motion passed based upon blah blah blah," but that should be in the document for the
right.
minutes.
And I was looking for that. I didn't see that in my inbox, Jeff.
Okay, then I'll send it to you immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So you're saying there's an additional item that Carol needs to include in last week's
Well,
minutes?
when Jeff made his motions at last week's meeting, I just asked that he sent over in the body of the email everything that he was saying, so the wording was exact, and I didn't get that.
Which I did send to the town attorney, but I had sent to you in advance, Bob. Everybody had seen the language, and then we made some modifications at the meeting before we passed it. The timing, and we talked about the notice going to the public and those types of things. So let me get that out to everybody right now.
Okay, and I'll attach that. Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the 7/2 minutes.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it carries unanimously. And that's the minutes. which takes us to agenda item 4, discussion and possible action upon any charter revision issue. So since last week, as Jeff indicated, the draft that we had was sent over to the town attorney, and we've seen a couple of revisions today. There was his comments, and then in pretty quick succession, an addendum to his comments. Has everybody seen? I also I was a little bit confused by what was going on, and so I didn't want to try to tease out everything in what we had into separate sections. So I just made an index. I went through all of the draft changes that we had and then just created kind of a little roadmap. So if you want to find, say, where we talked about elections and voting, it's in 203A, C, D, and 210. So at least we have kind of a quick way of finding the relevant sections, so we can do an intelligent comparison between what we sent to the attorney and what he changed. At this point, would it be appropriate, Dennis, for you to go through what you've done?
I think so, Bob, if you would. I think that would probably be a good way to save time and get right to the heart of the matter. I just want to say to begin, you all haven't been meeting for all that long, really, and you've really done an awful lot of work, and that's wonderful. And unfortunately for me, I had a personal tragedy that occurred on June 9th, and I wasn't able for a while to keep up with you. I did my very best, and anyway, I've written this proposal, which is a draft report proposal, up in the same format that I've done them in the past. The last couple of times we've had charter revisions. The first one, the longest to go one, was when we implemented the town administrator position, which was a few years ago, and then there was the one last year when the feature of the package was the budget and the possible bifurcation of the budget, and that was a little bit complex, and that worked out well. So I'm using the same format, trying to make it as simple as possible. Although I must say, for a commission that had a relatively short lifespan in terms of, it started late, and we don't have an awful lot of time. You didn't have an awful lot of time, and you also had relatively short meetings for an hour. I wish I could do that. I'm not good at meetings for an hour. Usually any meeting I'm at takes longer than that. I'll try to be as brief as I can, but I think you got into a lot of issues, and sometimes when you do that in a short period of time, it can be difficult. But I think you came up with some really great proposals, and I tried to introduce them into the language of the charter to some extent, because, to give it some context in some key places, especially. So what I've done is very similar to what I've written in the past, in those last two charter revisions, which were very successful. And this came out to be 8 pages long, because I did get an awful lot of input from you all that I didn't expect, and I tried to put it all together. And I think in some instances, perhaps minor ones, I think I was a little bit. I didn't get it all, but I think I got most of it, and I think I got it in what I consider to be my usual professional style. And this is it's an 8-page document with single spacing. As it points out, one of the reasons I'm using the phone is because I don't have a color printer, and I really have to refer to it on my computer. And if you want me to go through it page by page, I can do that as briefly as possible.
Bob, you're muted.
Yeah, I realized that. I think that would be instructional. Just, brevity is the soul of
Yeah.
wit, so play on.
Okay, I will try to do it briefly, but remember, we're on a short deadline. You did get the Board of Selectmen to give you a little more time, for submission of the draft report, which is actually due now on the 22nd of this month. If I'm not mistaken, you know, and the plan, from what I understand from Carol, talking to Carol and also talking to Jeff, is to get this thing finished this week and published in the River East on Friday for a public hearing, possibly either next Tuesday or Wednesday, because you have to have a public hearing once this thing is finalized to your satisfaction. And so without any more hesitation, let me just start with the beginning. And one of the things that comes up in the beginning is the notion that came up early in your deliberations, actually before I had my personal tragedy happen on June 9th. It was clear that there was a lot of agreement on moving in the direction of giving the Board of Selectmen more authority in terms of passing ordinances. And this whole thing about, it starts out with the definition section 105, which defines minor ordinance. Minor ordinance has been a bit problematic in the past. It's defined, but it's very, very hard to determine what's minor and what's not. We have passed minor ordinances through the Board of Selectmen over the years. It's worked out pretty well. There are a lot of them in place now. I don't know how well they're organized in the documents of the town. I'm sure they're in the town clerk's office, and because Carol keeps everything just so. But I don't know that they're available on the town website. Anyway, there are some minor ordinances. And what all this does is, it basically eliminates the minor ordinance category going forward, but it also says that any ordinance that was passed as a minor ordinance in the past shall remain in effect unless and until it is repealed or amended by the Board of Selectmen, who presumably under this charter, if it passes, would have the ordinance power. So that's section 105, the definitions part, in a nutshell. Any questions on that? Or should I just keep going?
Yeah, I think if you don't hear anybody scream, just keep going.
Well, okay, good. I'm sure I heard some screaming later on, or maybe not. Anyway, the next section I addressed is section 203, town officers, general election. That is where we really make the change that has already been made really by the Board of Selectmen, sort of tacitly or implicitly, and actually in effect, changing our election cycle for municipal elections from the May, the outlier, I'd say, May election cycle to November, which is what just about everybody else does, and which I think the state of Connecticut is kind of wants everybody to do. Okay, so this makes it official that our election, municipal election, is going to happen every year, every odd numbered year in November, first Tuesday after the first Monday, which is typical, which is the way it works. So that makes that change. And then going on to section B, that is something that is an issue that you have grappled with, and that is led by Carol, of course, who is the expert and who knows much more about this than anybody else, the town clerk position. Let me say this, that the under the state statute, section 9-185, which I cited in here, the default for town clerk, for placing a person in the town clerk position is to elect the town clerk. Most towns that I know of do not do that anymore. And I think there was a discussion that I attended where, the talk was in favor of moving in the direction of an appointed town clerk. One of the advantages of that is, in the future, is that you can draw from a much larger pool of potential applicants if need be. I mean, the downside of that is it's not just restricted to electing somebody from town. But in any event, I wrote this up in this way. section 9-185 has a subsection that says if you want to switch to an appointed town clerk, you can do it. We have to do it by charter provision, or you can even do it by ordinance, which is really not preferable. So what I have done based on what I heard and what I think I know is I've changed it so that the, Carol Lee was elected, as you all know, in the fall of 2023. Serve a 4-year term extending through 2027. So what this does, and there's more mention of it later on, is to change the system so that once her term expires, the Board of Selectmen will be appointing a town clerk, and so that certainly could be Carol Lee. It all depends on what they want to do at that time in the latter stages of 2027. So this language here is in there to affect that type of result.
Was that our intent, and/or is that a requirement that it's sort of a 4-year term? It's you're
It's
sort
not.
of now almost moving into employee status, and you're essentially saying, hey, you have a job for 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I think-
Does the town
It's
administrator have something similar?
Yeah,
no.
I think our intent was for it to mirror the town administrator, and that once appointed, they're hired until they either resign or they're dismissed for cause or something like that.
The town administrator has a 2-year contract.
Oh, he does?
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so they are sort of contract
Okay.
based in a
Yeah.
way. There's termed base. Okay.
Well, municipal, let's go this way. Municipal employees, especially non-union municipal employees, have exceptional rights, and it's not a standard, Jody. It's not like a business contract.
Okay, got
It's
it.
not like a business.
That's
position.
okay. As long as you guys think it's
But,
normal,
no,
if our
you
administrator
brought
works
up-
this
you-
way,
you
then
brought
that's fine with me.
You brought up a good point, which is the term of the contract. 4
Yeah.
years, is an excessively long term, and it should.
Like the Board of Selectmen too.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a complex role, right? That you need that time to learn. And it kind of would mirror an election of the Board of Selectmen. So
Well, the
maybe
town
4 years
clerk,
feels about right.
in my mind, town clerk is, and just like the town administrator. I mean, my hope in my term is we never replace Eric, and my hope would be that the next Board of Selectmen hires, well, Carol will end up being appointed to that spot. Let's be honest. So we're going to be honest with it. So if Carol wants it, Carol would be appointed to it. If Carol chooses not to take the position, then the issue ends up being who, and I would hope that the Board of Selectmen that is in the position at that point in time would hire the right person, and a 2-year contract or 4-year contract or 8-year contract would be, it wouldn't matter because that person would stay in position. Continuity is very important in the town clerk's position. The town administrator as well. I mean, I can't tell you, Eric came in with no experience and he's gotten better every year. He's continuing to improve his craft and what he's doing for the town of Andover, and we're very lucky. So it's a question of 2 years or 4 years. The town administrator currently has a 2-year contract, and this is for the period 2028 through 2030 we're talking.
I'm fine with how Dennis has this written.
Well, no, it's not the way I wrote it. The way I wrote it as a 4-year term, simply because, you could make it indefinite once you go to appointment. You can make it forever.
No,
As long as
I'm not suggesting that, Dennis. What I'm suggesting is it's
I
either
know that.
4 years
I know
or
what
2
the
years.
options are.
And if it's 4 years, it's no big deal. And it really should be, and I think Carol had written this, it should be the January. It really should be January. Like, we should appoint the town clerk. We should appoint a town clerk in January, because what you should allow is the Board of Selectmen that is then elected to have the authority to do it. Let's sit there and say in the next election cycle, Dennis, or anybody,
That's what I've written.
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen elected in 2027, in which in this case they would be elected early in the month. they would have until January 2nd to appoint either Carol or another person serve as town clerk, and that person would take office on June 2nd. I'm sorry, January 2nd of 2028. Now, if I'm Carol, okay, put myself in her shoes, and I've been running for town clerk for several cycles for 4-year terms, and you're going to cut the term for an appointment to 2 years, I'm going to say, well, you know, I'm used to the 4-year cycle, and the 4-year cycle has worked really well. And let me say this, there are statutes that govern, quite specific statutes, quite extensive statutes that govern the role of the town clerk. There is a way under state statute to remove a town clerk from office who does not do the job. That does not happen very often. Most towns that I've worked with and that I know about have not made hiring mistakes, hiring a town clerk. Obviously a vitally important job. You got to have somebody who's really capable of doing it. And there are such people out there. And, you know, if you do it right, you can get the right person. But I just made it a 4-year term simply to mimic what we've done up to now.
Dennis, I don't think anyone's objecting to that.
No.
Does the Board of Selectmen, when they're elected, does that switch happen in November, or does it happen in January? It does happen sort of right day after election, they're
2
appointed.
weeks after.
Okay, so they have time to figure out from sometime in November to January. Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I saw it. I mean, I again, you know, I've to some extent I've had to fill in the blanks on some of this because
You did fine.
you know, the
If
specific.
there's no one else objects, or let's keep going.
Yeah, I think we're all good with this as it's drafted. So let's continue, Dennis.
All right, I like it. Okay, and the next subparagraph is subparagraph C, which just simply points out, for the most part, that it switches the election cycle for everybody else, not the board of, you know, not including the Board of Selectmen and town clerk, which have already been addressed above, to all the other officers that are elected, and they're elected every 2 years. Okay, and that's the way it's been. This is not a change. It's the only change in C at the top of page 2 is to change the election cycle from May again to November, which is what we're doing anyway, and bring the charter up to date in that regard. And it says the next paragraph D, I put in all terms of office except as otherwise provided will commence on the second Tuesday of November following the town election. I think that's probably what I intended to say is something that I think you had already indicated. I think, Carol, in your materials, that you wanted those people to take office on the second Tuesday after the election.
Right, because
I'm not
that's
sure
when we went to November elections this year, that was how you had me report to the Secretary of State when the newly elected official
Right.
would be seated. So
Right.
I just
I think
felt continuity for that second.
I like that a lot. I think that this language I've written is a little confusing. It could mean the second Tuesday of November rather than the second Tuesday following the town election. I think I can change a word or two and
just
make
say
that.
just change the second to the third. That's what
Yes.
it is.
Yeah, the third. That's right, because it'll always be the third Tuesday.
Change it to the
After
third
the
Tuesday
first
in
Monday.
November. Okay.
Okay, so I can make a quick change on that. I know exactly what you're looking for. I noticed that when I went over it just a few minutes before the meeting, that I think I'm very rare for me to do this, but my language is a little unclear. All right, if I do say so myself. Okay, early voting 2:10, I'm sorry. My glasses on. That is something that was suggested by you all to put in. I don't think it's necessary, but it's nice to put it in there because, wow, is it going to be an important factor in our elections. Now, given the length of the period, which I think is too long, but it's not up to me. The legislature has decided. And so it just simply says the dates are going to be determined by the general statutes as amended. Okay, moving on to the town meeting. This is where we change the allocation of legislative authority between the Board of Selectmen and the town meeting in favor of more authority for the Board of Selectmen. That's all this does, essentially, in so many words and so many subparagraphs. And then down below, at the suggestion, I believe, of Carol, who pointed to the, I know I got the word that she had been looking at the Hebron Charter, and they do have a provision in there where somebody can appeal from a decision of the Board of Selectmen to pass a certain ordinance and bring it to referendum, which is something that is relatively common. Wyndham does that too in my hometown. It's all under different details, but I think the one thing that confused me in this section, which I did not include, was that, and this requires, I think, some discussion here, some sort of a notice from the town to the voters that the town, that the Board of Selectmen has passed an ordinance. That is going to make the process very complicated. And because normally, Carol, I think you know that 20 days is the time usually after which an ordinance is passed, after which it becomes effective. And it's usually during that 20-day window that a petition can be filed. But if notice has to go out to all the voters in the interim, that makes it pretty complicated. And I don't know what if you want to stick with that, I can introduce that in there somehow with Carol's help, because the time frame is going to have to.
Why does that make that difficult? I mean, what we talked about at the meeting was a notice goes out, even if it's 10 days after the Board of Selectmen meeting, and the notice goes out, all the voters have time to sit there and read what is being proposed. And the timeline, the 20-day timeline starts when the town clerk's office receives it, stamps it in as received, and says, okay, clock gets started. If someone wants to petition, that's the clock.
Yeah,
That's
and there's a
okay,
public hearing too. There's a public
disagree
hearing
with you.
that we talk about in 301. So people are going to get a notice of that, right?
Well, they're going to get a notice of the public hearing. We're going to talk about it. And then the Board of Selectmen passes it. Then a notice would go out to the public that an ordinance is going to be passed. And the clock for 20 days starts when that notice is received by the town clerk's office.
That will delay the process. It will delay. It will give the voters, the electors, I guess, a lot more time to get a petition together. It will encourage the filing of petitions.
Good.
If you wanted, it may not. It may not. I mean, I think in most places where these things exist, not a lot of petitions are filed because the voters generally will trust elected officials.
Although, yeah, I mean, we wrestled with this. I think we actually had some really healthy conversation. We wanted to give the public that opportunity to really, that check and balance of the Board of Selectmen. And I think, as Jeff pretty eloquently said, is they're going to have a pulse on these things, and they're not going to do anything crazy, right? So it was a little bit of that balance. So I think we wanted everyone to know what they're doing in some capacity, and giving everyone a good opportunity to petition and have that process.
All right. Well, I'll work with Carol to introduce that in, and we're going to have to change some time frames, and that can be done. It's just that time is of the essence.
And that's okay, Dennis.
Dennis,
the timeline, the 20 days starts when the public mailer is received by the town clerk's office. That's it. So notice Board of Selectmen goes through public hearing, Board of Selectmen passes the ordinance, the notice goes out, the notice is received by the town clerk's office, and 20 days starts then.
Okay, you're saying then that when you talk about a public mailer, you say it goes out. It goes out from who? From the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen through the town clerk's office will send out a townwide mailer. Just like we do for pretty much every election we do, right, Carol? Anything we do. And
Right.
Yeah.
it goes out, it gets received by the town clerk's office. The town clerk is one of the addresses on the mailer. Once it's received, she stamps it, and that's when 20 days starts. And what is it going to give them? An extra 5 days to get organized? If they're going to want to sit there and petition the ordinance, they're going to do it no matter what. So
Okay,
we're doing our best
okay.
to make the community feel
I-
comfortable that we're not just trying to ram things down their throat.
Well, I have to say that of all the towns I've ever been involved with, and I've been involved with a lot of them, you all bend over backwards to, I hesitate to use the word spoon feed, but I can't think of another thing, and that is okay. And it's certainly legal. I just find that, in my experience, processes that become more complex in any way tend to be problematic. That government needs to be streamlined. People need to understand the way things work. But this is the way. As long as Carol understands it the way you do, she and I will get together, right, Carol? And we're going to put this back in and
Yes.
make it work so that it makes sense to everybody, including me.
Dennis, I think the reasoning that went behind the mailer here was if we are going to remove the town meeting from the process, we want to go the extra mile to make sure that the public has had sufficient due notice of these things. So nobody can say, hey, we didn't know it was happening.
I get that, Bob. I get that. I understand, but it is unusual, and it's it is, but it is typical of what you do in Andover, because you send notices of all kinds of things out to the public, and that is I'm not a member of the town staff over at Town Hall that has to get all this stuff together, but anyway. I've said my piece, and I okay, you are in charge. It's okay. We can do that. So Carol and I will work on that together. But one of the reasons I didn't include it I didn't fully understand the timing of it all and who's sending this out and who's getting it and whatnot. But now I think I have it more clear, and Carol certainly does. And so we can do it together as we often do. Thank you. All right. So I just saw a typo in here. I've got a few. And, all right. So the annual town budget meeting.
Wait, before we go on there.
We have the process. We
Hang
have
on
the
a second,
process
Dennis.
for a piece.
Dennis?
Yep.
Okay, there's something else that I see has gotten lost in the translation, which is that
Okay.
in our section 2 of 301A, which became your paragraph 3, what we
Yeah.
said that we will schedule a special referendum to be conducted simultaneously with the election regularly scheduled to be held in November, or the next
Right.
regularly scheduled referendum immediately following validation of such petition. And that second clause there didn't make it to your draft.
Okay. So you're saying that the referendum on an ordinance can also be held in conjunction with another referendum that's already being scheduled
May or November.
in May or November.
They can be held in May or November.
Okay, because that's gonna make a big difference in terms of turnout. But okay, I get it. I think I recall seeing that somewhere. all the paperwork I've looked at in the past several days.
Yeah, in our
So
draft,
we'll put that.
it's section 301A, paragraph 2, the last sentence of paragraph 2.
Wait a minute, let me write that
It
down.
was in- it
Three
was
oh
in- It
one.
was in my email that I sent to you and I sent to the group.
Okay, the one
So
you
I
sent to me.
I had sent the email to the group, and then during our meeting, I changed the text and it's in black. Those were the items that we identified in black that would be changed. So
I got it.
townwide regular scheduled in either May or November.
Okay, so I'm taking all these changes that you want, and as long as these are done by, as long as you authorize me to work with the town clerk to get these done before she publishes the notice in the River East, that because what she will do, correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, is say that copies of the draft report are available at the office of the town clerk, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we can fix this
And on the
stuff up.
website.
And
Bob.
if you trust, well, you
Bob.
better trust Carol.
No, we do, but Bob, what I
We
would recommend.
we can do this. I'll come
One
back
second,
to you.
Dennis, 1 second. So we're reviewing Dennis's document tonight. Any changes should come back to the members of the commission. And we should have a quick meeting on another day to make sure we should get it, read it, and then come to a meeting prepared to sit there and say if we have issues with any of the items before it gets to the next step.
Could you do that on Thursday?
That's up to the board. I mean,
I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
Is everybody available Thursday?
I could be available on
It won't take long.
Okay,
I mean, Dennis, when could we get it? Did we get it on Wednesday evening?
That's tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I
You
have
get-
no.
all right, so we'll
Okay.
schedule another special meeting for Thursday, same time, 6 p.m.
Dennis, do we have a problem posting that?
You
We
have to
probably
post
do.
it.
No,
24
because I
hours
can
in
post
advance.
it tomorrow.
24 hours.
Right, I can post
Yeah,
it
do you have
tomorrow.
Okay,
have to have, yeah.
okay. So do we
All
need
right.
a motion for that, or are we all good, or should we make a motion for that?
Let's make a motion. Anybody want to move, Sub?
I make a motion that we schedule a special meeting of the Charter Revision Commission for Thursday, July 11th at 6 o'clock.
Second
I'll
motion.
second that.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. All right. Let's
Thank you very much.
proceed.
I like that. Good plan.
Okay.
Okay, so let's
Keep
move
going.
ahead. Special town meetings, annual town budget meeting. Okay, that's going to be earlier in the year, the second week of April. That's in section
303.
303. Right. That's all that's in there. As long as you're satisfied with the everything in the preceding section about appealing from an ordinance, except for what you want to be changed, and I've already stated. Okay, so then special town meeting, section 304. That is an important section. That is something that I thought you did a marvelous job on, because it enables it keeps a lot of these determinations from being made at a town meeting every time they come up. In other words, you've changed the thresholds, and I just want to make sure that I have them right for all of these items, the issuance of bonds and whatnot, all the way through there. I don't know if you want to go through them one by one, but I tried to take that from items that I received from, oh, there's a double vote in there.
Well, I got them side
Anyway.
by side, what we submitted and what you came back.
Good.
So Bob,
Okay.
can you make, so let's just go through the numbers. Is $50,000 issuance of bonds and financing the accurate number? I believe that is.
Would you like me to share my screen so we can all look at the same thing
Sure.
at the same time?
Let's do it.
Okay, hang on a sec. I will do that. Everybody see that?
Okay.
So this is what we submitted, and this is what Dennis came back with. So let's see. So 304A, it's $50,000. 304B, 0.5% became 1%. The paragraph on supplemental appropriations is here. Just tell me to slow down if I go too quick.
No, you're good.
Okay. We go down to E, leases in excess of $50,000. Term or obligation in excess of 1 year or 100,000. Now, where did that come from? Because I don't
Dennis?
see that in our draft.
Dennis, do we still have you?
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't recall exactly where I got that from. If it's wrong, we'll just take it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not something that we
Let's see.
submitted. So we submitted.
No, nothing I would have created. This is not something that I would mess around with.
Yeah, well,
Let's remove that because I don't believe that's in the minutes either.
E, we're going to remove
And
a
a cost.
and a cost of $100,000 or more.
Okay.
Everything
I'm
else
going to
stays.
delete that from. Okay.
Okay. And F also doesn't seem to be in our draft, but we have going from 0.25% to 2%. I think we're going to have to go back and look at the minutes or something. I'm just wondering if
I think the minutes say 1%.
1%.
It's either 1% or it was the same 1/4 of 1%. I mean, the minutes were.
Well, what I
That was
have
on the June 4th minutes that I was reading.
yeah, what I have on the left here is what Carol sent out on July 3rd.
And that would be exactly what was still in the original document. So then there was no change. But I actually think it goes back to no change because I don't think we changed that one. That one we left. It was still in the minutes, which I thought was odd, and it's extremely confusing. Exceeds 1/4 of 1% of the budget number. So that would be it's 0.025%. That's why I like numbers. I like flat numbers. Like if you're going to do $100,000, it's $100,000. If you're going to say $50,000, it's $50,000. I hate percent. I mean, I'm an accountant. I'm sorry. I hate percentages in things like this.
And as
So
a finance guy, I like percentages.
yes, of course. And it's always what works in your favor. I like definitive things that,
But I agree with Jeff that I looked back at those 4 minutes and I don't think we modified.
Yeah.
What I got from Bob's email, I think, Bob, you did the work with the town administrator on it. I don't think you guys proposed any change to that item.
I don't think we voted on that. So Dennis, we'd have to go back to 1/4 1%.
To F.
Okay.
Right? No change to F.
Yep, no change.
Yeah. I think that's what we all agree on.
Okay, leave it. Let it be. Let it be.
Okay.
All right. Got that.
So that's F.
And
G,
G.
yeah,
G is the change.
yeah, right.
G is
Is that right?
No, G is $25,000.
Well, no. This language is completely wrong here in G. What
I got
Dennis
that
has.
somewhere. I don't know where I got it from minutes or something.
Well, no, I mean, I remember us discussing this in detail, that the application for participation in any grant is going to be entirely dependent on what our portion of the grant is. It has to be, if we don't have to put a penny in, then, then we should be able to just apply for it and get the money without having to go to a special meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, you have a fixed limit in here. The language that we had submitted that's in Carol's July 3rd document is what we had agreed upon, which is that the application for participation in any grant, excluding the local and regional Board of Education, in which participation shall require the town and or the local Board of Ed to contribute in excess of $25,000 in cash or provide any in-kind participation to enter into such grant program. So we completely conditioned this upon how much the town was going to have to kick in, not upon the size of the grant itself.
Yeah,
All right, well, I'll look at
the minutes reflect that
I-
too,
I-
Bob.
Okay. So the next
okay,
thing,
I'll look at Carol. I have it. I have Carol's thing.
yeah,
304G.
304G, yeah.
Can you slow down, Bob? Go to I. Go to I.
Okay.
On the right side, yeah, okay. Such other matters in their discretion shall dean sufficient. Okay, I got that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for Dennis to have taken out the ordinance language there.
Yep, understood. All right, and
Yeah.
then J, we talked about removing that.
Is entirely removed, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Section, you keeping up with us, Dennis?
I am.
Okay, so section 305. Why don't I hand this back to you, Dennis?
So keep these up there because it's
Yeah.
very,
All right, I gotta look at 304G. Wait a second.
304D and J are related to ordinances, aren't they?
Right,
So they need to be removed.
Yeah,
yeah, that's really, what's in 305 is just two references that need to be taken out.
yeah, those are items that are being shifted from the town meeting to the selectmen. He is anyway. Let me see.
Right.
And
Stop. Okay. I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you sliding so fast. I'm like, did I miss a yellow? No. Okay. It's all right. Good. We're good.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
ahead of
Dennis
you.
strikes D in his document, which is appropriate. I think
Yeah.
he's looking at J.
Okay. Good. 402.
All right. 402, general powers and duties of the selectmen.
Mhm.
What do we do here? Yeah, to enact or rather than just to recommend ordinances, to enact them. This is pretty straight ahead. Gives them the ordinance power, subject to appeal, of course, by a vote by a petition.
Right. I just want to throw a comment in here, since this is, what we're talking about here. I have been contacted by residents of the town who wish to remain anonymous for the purpose of this meeting, who seem to have a lot of heartburn about granting this additional authority to the Board of Selectmen. And I agreed at least to voice this concern at the appropriate point in the meeting, since they reached out and contacted me. I think the feeling was that it's too much authority in one place, and how can we trust the Board of Selectmen? And that's all I'm going to say.
This was on
I'm not,
ordinances?
Excuse me?
On ordinances, is that correct?
Yes, yes. This individual had grave
Okay.
concerns about granting this level of authority to the Board of Selectmen and granting this additional legislative power and
Okay.
taking the
And
town
that's an
meeting.
opinion, and I think what, I sleep well at night knowing we built the structure in for petition process. If there was not one or two or three, but if there were 50 residents that really felt like our Board of Selectmen have done something haywire, that they have the opportunity to bring it to the whole town. So
I'm not saying that I endorse this opinion.
I get it.
I just agreed to bring it to the floor.
Thank you.
Done. Let's move on.
I would be surprised if there were not opinions like that, out in the community. This is not something that is going to be loved by everybody.
Yeah,
But
distrust of leadership. It's pretty common, I guess.
It's right. It's all about what do you want to go with a representative government in this regard, or not, and those issues are difficult. But I think it's a good call. I think that especially as you have pointed out over and over, that the citizens have a chance to appeal any ordinance, and this would be an ordinance, to a certain type of ordinance, certain types of ordinances that they could appeal to and go to referendum on. I just want to point out one thing, and I've been involved in a lot of ordinance creation in the past few years, working with the Board of Selectmen and town meetings, and there really has been a lot of cooperation between the Board of Selectmen and the public in terms of town meetings where ordinances are up for consideration, and just about everything that the board has put forward to the town meeting in the past several years has passed, which is really good news. That that the board and the public are working together in harmony, pretty much. But there's always going to be people who have different opinions, and they certainly are entitled to them. And that's not something that is just notable in the town of Andover, everywhere. Anyway,
Well, I take personal offense to that. I'm extremely trustworthy.
you're taking offense to a compliment?
That's not a compliment.
From
I'm talking about the public
the member of
will
the
not
public?
come to a
Oh.
meeting to tell me that I am not trustworthy. I have a problem with that. I think I'm
told you a
extremely
long time ago
trustworthy.
when you first-
Well, it might not
when
be
you
you as an
first got-
individual, Jeff. It might be the actions of the members of the Board of Selectmen.
As Jody, as I try to tell, and Dennis, hold on for a second. As I try to tell everybody, just simply, there is for members of the Board of Selectmen in this board, there is zero personal gain that is happening, that can happen, and that is happening. I mean, we've made the changes to sit there and take the town administrator and put that person in a paid position. So I just sit there and I look at the town of Andover. It's in a very good position as far as I'm concerned. And the current situation of trust, I don't, we're not national politics. We're local politics. We do things very simply for the benefit of Andover, and those types of issues. I would love, Bob, for them to come out and at least have the conversation with the Board of Selectmen. If they feel that we're doing things that aren't in the public's interest and we can't be trusted, I sure would like to know that. And if I'm doing something wrong, I'd like to fix it.
I'll
But-
come to your next meeting then, Jeff.
Thanks,
I'll
Joe.
express a few
You can
things.
express it for me. Right.
All right, let's
Well-
move on.
Okay, yeah. Some people say I talk too much, Jeff. All right.
I apologize.
Anyway. No, I'm enjoying this a lot. Okay, okay, for public hearing on publication of ordinances. Okay, that just removes the reference to Charter Section 105H, which is the minor ordinance portion that we're deleting. Make it, take that out of the mix, except for things that have been done in the past. Terms of office,
Hang on, Dennis. There was another little bit that didn't make it in from section 404. In our changes, we specified every ordinance, unless it shall be specified at a later date, shall become effective on the strike 21st day, and change it to 45th day after such publication.
okay, that's right. That didn't make it in there because I was a little stunned by that, because the norm is 20 days. But I understand now why you did. I think I understand why you did that, and that's because of this thing about we talked about before about the mailer, the so-called mailer.
Mhm.
That's why you're doing 45 days.
No,
that's
that
gotta
was,
be
that
added in.
was to give the community more of an opportunity to to understand the ordinance before it went into effect, to be more transparent and more open. So,
That is in,
Yeah.
maybe it's in two places, but that is in Dennis's document.
he did it earlier.
301A, paragraph 2.
Yeah, but it has to be changed there as well in 404.
Okay, got it, both places. Makes sense.
That's changed in both places. That's right. So that's
And-
404.
And Dennis needs to
40
change the sections related to the ordinance, because he was going with the 21 days from publication, and we had changed it from 21 days for potential, or 20 days for potential petition, and 45 days to enactment. That was what we were trying to do, to be as trustworthy as we possibly could be.
Transparent.
Okay, very good. Very good. I got that. All right. Okay, you got my attention on that one. Good. Okay, terms of office, commence on the second Tuesday immediately following the biennial municipal election in November. Okay, that is language I think I got from Carol. And
Yes,
that
but
is what I
it
tried.
has to be the third Tuesday.
Yeah, well, to clarify it, we'll say that, but it's the second Tuesday immediately following the biennial election is actually the third Tuesday.
Correct. Yeah. That's
The same thing differently, but if you want, I mean, I can make that change. Clarify section 605 to
well, 605,
third.
605, if you said the third Tuesday, would then line up with the other section that was in.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's right.
But that
That's right.
is for the appointed ones, Dennis, and you told me those did not change and we were keeping them as they are after we had the last election. So isn't section
And that's-
605 in regards to all those appointed boards that are identified in section 606? Because after
Yes.
last election, it was just decided that all of the appointed boards would remain still, could be appointed, and their term of office would be July 1. So are we we didn't vote to change that. We didn't do anything with that because, like I say, the appointed boards were just left as they were after we
Does this
switched to November.
apply to appoint Carol?
I'm pretty sure
Okay,
that section 605, let me look it up. just to make
Yeah,
sure.
town board members shall be for 2 years and shall commence on the first Monday in
okay.
July. All town board members shall be eligible for reappointment and shall continue in office. Successors, but-
Yeah,
So-
they're appointed. That's
So
Right.
leave that alone. So take 605 out.
You want to leave that alone?
Yes,
Leave it the way it is?
yes, we never voted
Leave
to
it
change.
the charter, I mean? Carol?
We never voted to change that, and when we had our first municipal election last November, we discussed this.
Yeah.
And I think it was just decided that the terms of the office and will remain the same for appointed boards and commissions. So I guess we could discuss it if everybody wants.
No, do not do that because
Do not do that.
do
Okay.
not do that. That's very, to reappoint boards is always a confusing thing. And if you try
It
to
is.
do it right around the elections, you're gonna end up with problems. So just leave it as July and they're appointed boards. And we need the volunteers, and to confuse it in an election will cause future problems.
Right.
What I'm gonna do, Carol, is just remove, the current charter says in July, first Monday in July of 1999. I'm just gonna take out of 1999. So it'll be just July, okay?
Do we need to make a motion for that and accept that? Or can we make the motion when we approve this in total? I mean, that's up to you, Bob.
I think when you
Let's-
approve it in total, you do it all.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I would do.
Let's
Done.
move on.
let's move on. Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah, okay.
ready to move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, administrative services. Chapter 7, section 701. Okay. Because we tried to do this, I've been annoyed for a long time personally, and you can reject this, but requiring a competitive exam process and interview committee and all this stuff is never been, as far as I know, it's never been done. And I don't see why it should stay in the charter. So I threw that in just for you to consider. 701. If you want, you can leave it alone.
What even does competitive examination mean?
I don't know.
I mean, is it an interview process?
Some towns do testing, and that's the competitive examination. We've never done that.
Well, let's just let it be then. I mean, it's just something. I'm just compulsive about things that are in the charter that are not never implemented and ignored. Why keep them in there? But that's okay. I mean, it's not my. One of the things I try to do is I try to make recommendations, and this is my recommendation. But
Dennis,
you don't want to bother with it.
we haven't discussed or reviewed this, and I think we should try to limit our changes to those things that we have that have gone through the process with us. You know, this can happen in the next cycle.
Very, very good, Bob. Very good. Okay, so I'll just leave it be. Section 701 will remain as it is.
No. You have to remove the first sentence.
Right, the one that's highlighted in yellow, because we're adding 702.
Delete with the exception of 702 town clerk, which is an elected position.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got it.
And then leave the rest of the verbiage, the language.
Leave it in there. Leave it in there for a future commission, Bob. You're right. Some commission that has 16 months to work on it. Not one that has what, three months? If you had that much.
Let's keep going.
Okay, now these suggestions, 702, that came from you, Carol,
Wait,
about the director of health.
there we go.
Right, that was just something that we're doing. We're doing right now.
Yep.
That was just. Yeah.
No, wait.
Okay,
So we're gonna remove that sentence.
we're going to remove that sentence, yeah.
Did we vote on that?
Carol, that was the materials. Likewise, in
That was just
subsection E,
suggested because we're not following that anyway, right?
And I don't have any problem with it, Bob. This would be like the same thing. We'll vote on it the next time. I don't have a problem removing that because we employ a consultant or an outside entity to fill that role.
Agreed.
I mean, and so the question is, do we want to make a motion to remove it and all be on the record as saying we voted it down, or do it in the next stage of reviewing Dennis's document?
How about we do it through unanimous consent?
Yeah, I'd be fine with the technical clarification here to remove it.
Okay.
You guys are really just trying to clean up this document of the actual practice of town.
If we hear no objections, then so ordered through unanimous consent.
Okay.
Got it.
That's something that we don't
Same
do
goes-
enough.
Well, you've only been together now for a very short time. You've done a lot.
Wait.
Okay.
Yeah, Dennis has that in there, so E is in there. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
E is in there too. That was something that Carol also suggested, and I went along with it.
Now, the question is gonna be, and I'm just saying, we now have a sanitarian and wetlands enforcement officer. This goes into the whole thing, Carol, and this is more of a global thing. Will we be hiring an employee, and are we required to hire an employee if the position, let's say it becomes part of a shared service? What happens in those situations?
Well, the health is, that's what we do now with the health district. They regionalized back, what was it, in 2005 or something like that, and that's when we went with Eastern Highlands. So contract now with NECOG for the animal control. Don't have one. So,
That could happen in all of these positions.
right. We could
I mean, it's even,
regionalize
it's
on all
even
of
like
it.
the treasurer is technically right now not an employee. It's a independent contractor.
Right.
I didn't
Okay,
want to open up. a can of worms.
let's not get into all of it, because if we get into all of it, we'll be in this section for a lot
No,
longer.
well,
Keep going.
we're operating.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a deadline coming up soon.
Yep.
So you want to leave that alone?
Yep, go to,
E, just leave it out. Let it be.
no, make that change, because that was an easy change.
Oh, we'll make that. Okay, that's the last one I think that Carol suggested, and then
The
I've
only,
changed.
Go
Go
on.
ahead.
the only other one was the tax collector with salary, because we haven't been doing that for a long time.
I didn't include that one, Carol.
Hmm.
I don't know how I must have overlooked it.
But that's pretty definite. It says the said officer shall be compensated on a salary basis only. We have not been doing that.
They are. See, this is really Carol, where it's really technical, because they're on an hourly basis, but an hourly cap, right? So we're saying the tax collector is so many hours, and their pay is consistent as if it was a salary, but it's really based upon a certain number of hours. I agree with Carol. Let's remove that. It's the same,
What
because-
subsection is that?
it's in N of this section of
Okay, I can.
702,
All right.
and it just says
Yeah,
this
yeah.
officers are compensated on a salary basis only. So
Yeah.
this is really a hard one too. I'm just telling everybody as a group, because the tax collector's role. It's a, town employee. I mean, it's very difficult when these sections and these positions are positioned as a town employee in certain competitive examinations and all the rest of the stuff, because it would be you're tying the hands, technically, if someone wanted to sue us, you're tying the hands of what we can and can't do within those positions. So that's for the next group. Keep moving, but take that out. The set off.
For the next group. Carol, we tried to deal with this last year, and it got shut down.
Right, we tried to fix
But,
it last revision, and it did get cut down.
Yeah, try to fix it in a big way, and it just didn't make it. So we'll leave it for, if everybody's okay with it, we'll leave this tax collector issue, which I really shied away from. And I don't shy away from too much. That I didn't want to deal with that, Carol. So we just leave that alone.
So are we
All right.
including,
So
are we including N in the changes, or are we leaving it, not changing it?
not changing it is my impression.
No,
Up to you all.
no. I think what we said is that what Carol had suggested in yellow in N, the said officer shall be compensated on a salary basis only, was a really, I guess, a technical correction that Carol suggested that I think Jeff said, yeah, that really makes sense. There was a bigger issue in N about examinations and all that we're just gonna let live. So I think that one
Yep.
minor change in N is what we wanted to make. Carol, Jeff, you guys both nodding?
Yes.
Okay. And Karen and Patricia
Sure.
too. Okay. Got it.
Okay, once again, unanimous consent, no objections.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, I have that from Carol's material, so I'll just plug it in. So we have the language regarding the town clerk, which is pretty much the same or similar language that you saw earlier in the document about the town clerk no longer being elected as of November of 2027, and the Board of Selectmen appointing a clerk for a term of 4 years by a minimum of 3 votes, which is, a majority. Well, it's a super majority because you need 3 votes even if only 4 people or 3 people showed up for a meeting. But to appoint a qualified person to be the town clerk. That would be the change that would be made if you're going to an appointed town clerk beginning in January of 2028. So that language is very similar to what was in the first part, foreshadowing this.
there seems to be more language in what we submitted than what you've included here.
Much more. I agree. I've discussed this with Carol earlier today. I think what was submitted, I don't like it legally. I don't like it in any way, shape, or form to tie the hands of a future Board of Selectmen and require the appointment of a certain person for another term as a person who has actually run for election many, many times, 4-year terms, to then appoint that person, that individual, to not name the individual, but everybody knows who it would be. I think that is over the top, and I think it may not be legal.
Mm-hmm.
Can you?
If you want, I'd be glad to research the hell out of that if you want. It'll take time. It'll slow me down from doing other stuff, but I do not think that is a good way to go. And I think that the likelihood, if Carol wants to stay on after her current term, which has another 3 years to go, more than 3 years, and wants to stay on in an appointed position, the chances are not certain, but great that she'll be reappointed. But I think try to make it certain in a charter. I can't see doing that when you've got a statute that allows you to choose between an elected town clerk or an appointed one. And for all these years, we've chosen to be a town that has an elected town clerk. And for switching over to an appointed one, if you make it mandatory that the person that filled the position in the last time the person was elected for the position is going to stay on without having to run for it again, I think that is that's like making it an 8-year term. starting in 2023. I don't think that that's constitutional. My gut,
That's
my
fine.
gut.
Can I ask
All
a
right,
question?
well,
Can I ask a question on the language that's on the left, on the one that was provided? Carol, that was filled in by you, correct? Because we didn't have all that when we voted, correct?
On the left is what Adrian put. So
Adrian.
that in red is what Adrian proposed. And at the bottom, if Bob scrolls to the bottom, it shows the meeting that it was voted on. He had sent us over a document too via email, so
Okay.
I copy and pasted all of that information, and that's what's in red.
Okay, but that wasn't attached to the minutes. Again, it was just like what happened with mine on the ordinance one.
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right.
Let
All
me
right.
let me speak up on this.
Yeah.
So it seems that if we are operating on the presumption that the town clerk is a hired position and that person then holds the position in perpetuity, then what Adrian proposed here is consistent and rational with that position. If on the other hand, as we understand it better, how Dennis has laid it out, that it is a position that has a 4-year contract that is up for renewal or reappointment every 4 years, then Dennis is absolutely correct that this language of the incumbent automatically taking over and continuing in that position is inconsistent. So I think what
Well,
Dennis has done here makes sense.
I mean, I may not, I mean, this is a question of, and this would be a question of when the town clerk would be appointed. So the town clerk would be appointed by the next Board of Selectmen that would be elected. I mean,
Correct.
you would appoint Carol Lee if she wanted the job. If Carol Lee does not want the job, then the community should be out looking for a town clerk before that election date, because you wouldn't want it to get to January. So you would be really concerned. I would be really concerned. So I will be on that board of, I'd be on the board in that timeline. I'd be asking Carol in July if Carol plans on staying. If Carol planned on staying, we'd draft a contract and have it ready to go. If Carol would not stay, then the community needs to start looking for someone to fill that role. I'm just telling you logistically what would happen.
And it's
So,
really the same as what would happen if it was an elected position, because she would start considering her campaign some number of months before the election.
correct.
And so there'd be activity. There's really strong parallels here.
So, I just know you. I mean, I don't have a problem with Dennis's language, but I'm trying to read what would not be in there and what would we want to have in there. I mean, the only thing that Dennis changed that is different is the removal of the town clerk. He did change that. And the question I would ask Carol, what is the removal of the town administrator?
Okay, so the removal of the town.
I can find that in here.
No, it would be further. It would be the other way.
You think so? No, here it is. 701E.
Yeah,
Okay, then it should be the same thing as the town administrator removal.
so that is the language for all of the appointed officers of the town.
Yep. Right? Because didn't I read that 3 votes? Yeah. No, you want to make it the same thing, 4/5.
Supermajority.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I want to point out is the town assessor, the building official, so this office shall have permanent staff. That's the only thing that I'm thinking maybe to put in there rather than every 4-year appointment. Again, I just want to point that out. If you read the assessor 702A, it says, This office shall have permanent status.
It's fine. I think by
Um,
statute, by state statute, we probably, as a town, couldn't abolish the town clerk's office.
Right.
That is
But
correct.
But that's fine.
And
We
then
can
the
put-
treasurer shall have permanent status.
That's fine. Put that in there, Dennis.
I'm just pointing that out. I'm not trying to weigh in one way or the other. I just wanted to point that out because I'm
Like,
abstaining from everything, but I did just want to point
Yeah.
that. And even our public works maintenance team leader shall have permanent status. So
let's be consistent. So
Wait a minute, please. The language in the building official, town assessor, all of those things says this office shall have permanent status. Doesn't say the person filling the office shall.
no, the office.
I mean, you can do that.
right.
What's that?
Just say the
Fine.
office. Be consistent between all of the different things. It's not the
All right, that
office.
really,
It's not the individual has permanent status. It's the office. So what Carol is
Yeah.
saying and what the charter would say is a rogue board of selectmen couldn't just abolish the office.
Yeah, but isn't the office of town clerk required by state law?
It is, yeah.
Then we don't need to put it
Absolutely.
in the charter.
But
I agree. I can't see putting it in the charter, but the one thing that we could do, you know, I have assumed because the terms have always been 4 years, that we would continue with a 4-year term. So that you know, there would be an opportunity at the end of the 4 years for the a future board of selectmen. And I certainly won't be around, and maybe not everybody on this call would be around, but at least not operating as town of Andover officials, will be you know, making a decision way down the line. You know, you could have an indefinite term, or you could
no,
have
no,
an
we're not
appointment every
asking. I don't think Carol was asking for the term. I don't think we should change the term. 4 years is sufficient. It's fine. What Carol was saying was all of the other offices say it's a permanent office. Put it in the town
Yeah.
clerk's new verbiage. Just let's put it in. Everything else,
Sure.
if everybody else is comfortable with it, I'm fine. I mean, I'd be fine with it. It's not, and you're
Yeah.
100% right. It's statutorily required, but we're just putting it into our charter to be consistent with all the other offices. Or we go into all the other offices and remove that verbiage, which I'm not in favor of. Just put it in. It's a
No.
permanent office.
Okay.
I disagree.
Your wishes.
I disagree. These other positions are not required by state statute, but we're just saying we're putting them into the charter to protect them. But the clerk is
The
required.
assessor is guaranteed a
Is it?
state statutorily. Yes.
Probably. I don't know for sure, but probably. So building official is too.
Yeah.
It has to be a building official. I don't know about all the others. Animal control.
Probably
don't
the
know.
only one that's not statutorily required, Bob, is the director of public works. I bet you everything else is statutorily required and the
think-
town attorney is not, but I bet you it's not in there.
Town engineer is not.
No, that's right.
So
Town clerk definitely is.
Yeah, definitely.
You
So is the assessor.
know what? I'll put it there. Let's move on.
No, Bob doesn't want to. Now we're gonna vote. I don't wanna sit there and have a problem. Let's sit there and just decide what we're gonna do. We don't need to put it in. I'm just saying that we don't need to put it in. Carol is pointing it out, so for the benefit of the town clerk's office, I would sit there and say doesn't mean anything. It's statutorily required. We're just putting in a charter that no board of selectmen could try to, eradicate the office of the town clerk.
okay, Jeff, make a motion.
I make a motion that we put in that, can you go to the language in the other groups, Bob, so I can see it? Right there.
Um,
Assessor, there you go. I make a motion that okay, I make a motion that we include the verbiage in the town clerk section, is that 702O?
Right.
That the office shall have permanent status. So I'm making a motion that we include in section 702O, the town clerk's office shall have permanent status. Does someone want to second that or no?
I'll second it.
Tricia Bill. Next.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the subject? All those in favor?
Wait,
1, 2, 3. Carol, how are you voting on that? 4? Jody? Yes or no? You're muted.
Sorry, trying to record the motion here with typing. I am
Yeah.
a no, a negative.
Okay. So we have 4 positives and I'm voting no, 2 negatives. So it carries. Okay.
All right, I'll do it.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. I think, I don't know if I saw a vote on this, but I don't know where it came from, but I did eliminate subject to the approval of the town meeting that the Board of Selectmen may appoint additional officers as the needs of the town require, subject to budgetary appropriations. So I lined out subject to the approval of the town meeting. I don't see why you would need town meeting approval for that, especially in view of the new system we're doing here where the Board of Selectmen has more ordinance authority, among other things. But that can go, whatever you want to do.
what additional officers would we appoint? Or could be appointed? Let's just go that way. Anybody?
It's only limited by your imagination, by your experience.
So no matter what the Board of Selectmen or a Board of Selectmen tried to do, if they wanted to add an additional employee, that employee would have to go through the budgetary process, and then it would have to be approved by the voters anyway.
Yes.
So did we do that with the
No,
community
we did not.
director?
Yes, we did, but we put it through the budgetary process and gave a budgetary item for that. And so, but I don't necessarily consider that an officer. Like what I'm really confused about is the term officer. Like, what does additional officers mean? And Jody, I'm sitting there going, any employee or any new position, the Board of Selectmen can recommend a new position to be, just like we did with Public Works. We put a new Public Works person in. We put the person in for the community center. But those appointments that we were attempting to make had to have a budgetary dollar with them to get approved. So I just don't understand what additional officers means. Dennis?
I agree. I don't know what it means either. It means, it's not defined in the charter, so we don't know for sure. And maybe it should be instead say employees or whatever. Or
Well,
employees or public officials. I don't know.
I mean, that one, if that's
Could
what it
leave-
is, so Carol, on the left, we have our charter, and in 703 says additional officers and employees. The Board of Selectmen, subject to approval of the town meeting, may appoint such additional officers as needed as the needs of the town require, subject to budgetary appropriations.
That's how the charter's written right now. Exactly.
I mean, I guess what is currently happening, what is currently done logistically is the Board of Selectmen recommends a new position. The new position moves to the Board of Finance with a dollar amount attached to it. The Board of Finance, like in the case of the current um, community center director, they lowered the budgetary amount and that got passed. So those are the restrictions that we're under. So we recommended one number, the Board of Finance came with a little bit lower number, and that's the number that we're out there trying to obtain an employee.
That's done in a roundabout way, like you just said, the process. You put it in the budget, it's proposed at the annual town budget meeting. Or passes, doesn't. So in a roundabout way, the towns follow.
So the town, we could remove that because I don't know, like, we don't approve even employees. The town of meeting does not require to approve an employee. I don't know what an officer would be. I don't understand who we would ever appoint, who a Board of Selectmen would appoint as an officer. So I don't even like the whole section, to be really honest. But
I'd
any
like to suggest
employee-
that we shelve the whole thing.
Can I just say this? We appointed
Sure.
a blight officer, a blight hearing officer. You have appointed officers. They're not paid positions, but you have appointed officers. So you may want to leave that in.
But we didn't get it approved by the town meeting.
Right.
So you violated the
Well, you
charter.
did because
No wonder why people don't think I'm trustworthy, Joe.
no, you did. Got the blight. You got the blight ordinance passed, and in the body of that blight ordinance was a provision for the people who were given a blight notice to appeal it. So you have appointed
So
officers.
Carol's got your back, Jeff. She says you're good.
I'm good. Okay.
But that's a great example, Carol. You know, there might be things that I don't know, there might be an appointed officer of the town at the park where the dogs are being left off leash that has the authority to notify the town to subject that individual to a fine. I know I'm a Marine Patrol officer for the town of Columbia, and I have that sort of ability, that direction to issue a warning, goes to the selectmen and they can issue fine. So maybe that would be something they wanted, flexibility for our board to have officers for different things.
let's clarify that, because I do want to understand it. The blight enforcement officer that we had was the zoning enforcement officer, correct?
Yes,
Right, but we have a blight hearing officer.
No, we have a hearing officer, not a blight hearing officer. We have a
Hearing officer.
we have
okay.
that's right.
we have a hearing officer, correct? Dennis,
Correct.
what's the term? What's his term? What's his title? I'm just asking.
Oh God.
It was in the body of that
Yeah.
last ordinance we did, Dennis.
Hearings officer. He's,
Hearing officer. That hearing
uh,
officer could hear
citation-
any.
Citation.
Yeah, true.
Citations hearings
Good point.
officer.
It's pretty generic.
First one we've ever had. Did a great job on his first hearing. He's fantastic.
Oh, okay.
And he's not paid. He's a volunteer.
You volunteer.
And
Crazy man.
in fact, I don't know that Jim Halsey's salary was increased when he got the additional responsibilities as blight enforcement officer, which in addition to his role as zoning enforcement officer, for which I'm sure he's paid.
I think
So
that entire section, we have.
I think it's
understand
marvelous.
what Carol. I understand what Carol is saying. It is in the document of the ordinance that was approved, but that's a mess right there, because I don't think that the town follows it. I don't think the Board of Selectmen follows that appropriately. I don't think it's drafted correctly. I don't think we don't go to town meeting to approve employees. We didn't go to town to approve the appointment of the blight officer. It might have been in the document, Carol, that says we were going to have to do it, but we never went and said, here's the appointment.
No.
I just think that's
Well, that's one reason I lined that part out.
okay.
I'm just trying to be helpful, you know,
Yeah.
as always.
Leave it go. I mean, it has to be, that whole thing should be worked on in the next group.
So are we gonna
I think if you,
take out that line subject to the approval of the town meeting?
I think we leave it untouched and it
Okay.
becomes the subject of the next review
Yeah,
commission.
that one's touchy.
Yeah. If we touch it, we own it.
All right.
I think we leave it alone.
all right. Sorry, hope I didn't waste too much time. Interesting discussion though.
Okay, moving
7:05,
on.
leave it. I'm gonna just take it right out of the document.
Yep.
All right. Now we're getting to finance and taxation. Now all of this stuff that I added in, I got from Carol's document. Hopefully I got it right, Carol. These are changes that were made. I wasn't familiar with these very much. These are changes that you're trying to make to streamline the budget process, it seems. Is a noble venture. But I just added it in pretty much what Carol had.
So you just copied and pasted?
Well, I did what I do. Yes, pretty much. That would be all the way down to
E1 of that section.
yeah, of that section of section 802. Right. But then it goes on to 803 as well.
Right. Yeah, this is all just verbatim from what we submitted.
Well, as long as I didn't make any typographical mistakes, which I'll surely correct if I can. The only other thing I want to bring up about this is that I think from Jeff, I heard that you wanted to line up the budget vote, the initial budget vote on the town budget with the budget vote by the regional school district.
Yes.
And I didn't know how that goes into this, because this is pretty specific about how you do the budget vote and when it's done. And I was wondering if having a budget vote, well, the regional budget vote has nothing to do with your local budget, right? I mean, in terms of your voting on it.
Right.
Okay,
So
so you
we were
could
just-
have them sign.
Right, we were trying to just do that. Hebron does that then. So this language
Yep.
is pulled from Hebron's charter.
Okay,
The
so
language-
I didn't. All right, go ahead.
The language in section 803 is what lines up our budget with the regional budget.
Okay, without saying so specifically.
Right.
I see. I was looking for it and I couldn't. I was wondering where it would fit in.
No, that's the
So
reason
I
for the
left it
changes in
alone.
803.
Okay.
So moving on to 803 then.
Same thing from my, I took this from Carol's document.
Okay. So we have some sections that are stricken in their entirety and some with some major removals. About
Right.
quotes and such. I think this stuff was pretty well beaten to death in our prior meetings, discussed. We don't need to revisit it. So that would take us to section 805.
Yeah, supplemental
appropriations.
appropriation. I don't know if I got that right.
Here's the Board of Finance. Change things from 0.5% to 1% in paragraph B. We added the new paragraph about 2.5% or $200,000. That was all
Yep.
Adrian's language. Everything here seems to be reflecting what we submitted. Everybody good with that? Okay. So now we go all the way up to 1003. Oh, I skipped something here.
That's a cosmetic change.
Yeah, I just conflicts of interest, except any reference.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just a reference. Reference.
Exactly.
And then,
Carol suggested the change to section 1010, taking out the fact that, as she knows very well as town clerk, that resignation, you don't need to have a resignation accepted by the Board of Selectmen. Simply because we have a 13th Amendment to the Constitution. And you can't make people stay on when they want to resign.
unless they're
So
in
that's,
prison.
yeah, but we're not dealing with that here, are we?
I don't think so.
I don't, no.
Can you go back
Yeah, we missed something here.
right there?
Dennis, you missed something in section 1008, review and amendment of charter. We had submitted proposed language if on review.
I took that out. I took it out because I think it is there are times when something will come up on an almost emergency basis, and when you have a charter, the one disadvantage, and there are very few disadvantages of having a charter as opposed to being governed by ordinance. It's easier to pass an ordinance real fast if you have an emergency that needs to be addressed by some sort of action, legislative action. So I think I understand why you feel this way, because you've taken on an awful lot of work in a very short amount of time. And that was your choice, though. I mean, there were issues that were brought up.
Dennis, you could keep going on this, but you have to put that in the draft. I'm just saying,
All right,
it
I'll
was
put it in.
voted on. It was voted on. It may not
put it in.
make it,
I
it
think
may not make it all the way through the process, but you've got to put it in.
All right, I'll put it in. Real simple. I talked to Carol about it this morning. I told her what I thought about it, but I didn't put it in.
Put it in.
Yeah, I guess unless, Dennis, there's something legally that would prohibit us from doing that. then it is, we voted, I think we had a
Well,
4-2 vote on that.
That is a good question. That is a legal question, but I think probably the answer to that question is that the general rule on charters, on dealing with a charter, is it is home rule, and you can do whatever you want to do within certain really broad boundaries,
Okay,
as long as
thank you.
it's not an issue as long as it's not an issue that would be of concern to the state. And probably, even though the state passed this law for a particular purpose, this Home Rule Act, you limiting the application of the Home Rule Act in Andover to, it's got to be at least 6 months. 6 months for what? 6 months, you mean for submission of the draft
minimum
report?
term. It was a minimum term.
Huh?
It has to go in. It has to go in. It was voted on. I voted against it. People voted for it. We're on a committee. It's how it works. Put it in.
I know how it works. I'm just
All
trying
right,
to
let's
be
go.
helpful.
Don't waste our time. We've got to go. I got to eat dinner. Everybody wants to eat dinner.
Come
I'm
on,
gonna check
Jeff.
out Karen's shoes. There's got to be something better going on. Let's go.
All right, I'll put it
Okay,
in.
thank
Damn
you,
it.
Jeff.
Okay, you got it, Jeff.
Thank you.
You got it, Jeff. I hope I hope I find somewhere that it's not legal, but I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to look it up. It's not. I don't care. I don't care. I'm just trying to be helpful.
We appreciate your advice. Let's keep going.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you're hungry, Jeff. That's too bad. Okay.
He's not
The other
just,
thing
he's
was
not just hungry, he's hangry.
I'm angry.
yeah.
get
Well, I know how he
I don't get angry. It's
worked with
fine.
him. Anyway, all right. The effective date. I generally make the charter effective the end of the fiscal year, the current fiscal year the charter is passed in. But there are certain items that, especially the budgetary item, you want to get that effective right away. But usually the charter provisions that are newly passed do not become effective the next day after the charter passes. But we can do that with the way I've written it, with the exception of any revisions enacted regarding finance and taxation, which may be implemented immediately. So that means you would be able to implement your changes if they pass to the finance and budgetary part immediately for the budget to be developed in the early part of 2025. Okay.
Hold on.
So that's section.
That
10-11
section,
effective.
I'm okay with that section. I was down to 10, 12,
Transition.
10, 12. Yeah.
I don't think there's any need for that section at all anymore, because that's all of that stuff is in the earlier sections where you've been electing a board of all these boards of finance, boards of education. You're on a system that I think is self-explanatory. It's in the early part of the charter. I don't think you need all that stuff in the transition.
Okay. So go back to that section. Just so 10, 12 was the transition in the 1999 charter revision.
Right.
Okay. So we don't need it. We can get rid of that, but we should vote on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of it.
Or unanimous consent, which I really like, Bob.
Yeah, well, 1010 and 1012 and 1013 are all historical at this point, it seems.
I agree, Bob. 1013 could be done away with too.
Yeah, we can.
I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I think
Can
we can
I
keep
ask-
1014.
Do you want to keep those for historical record? Shows progress of town or any, I guess I just don't understand if there's any need.
Prior charters are kept historical. Jody, prior charters are all kept.
So we sort of
Okay.
have what it was.
Permanent
it.
for any office.
So every rendition of charter has a version with the town clerk.
Yes.
Got it.
And to draw a comparison, if you look at the Connecticut general statutes, when they make a change, they make a change. And then there are historical notes that are separate from the statutes, for what it's worth. but they don't keep the old laws in with the new laws.
So it unclutters it.
Yeah. Okay, then, through unanimous consent, if no one has any objections, we will delete in their entirety sections 1012 and 1013 because they are superfluous, outdated, historical. Hearing no objections, so ordered.
I think Bob needs a gavel.
For routine administrative actions, you don't do the motion and second and vote, especially if you have 435 congressmen kind of thing, 438, whatever the number is, 535. So that's where unanimous consent comes from, where voting becomes an onerous process. The commission is 6 people, 7 people, it's not so bad. Okay.
So do we need section 1014?
Except as otherwise provided in to serve a specific term, shall continue to serve the exception unless the office is abolished, as terms expire or vacated. We have kind of a sentence fragment there.
Is that something that we did, Carol, or?
That is part of our charter right now, and all I did was put in, added that, changed it to 2024.
Dennis, do we need that section?
I don't think so. As Carol pointed out, and I knew you were going to do that. You have copies of all the old charters, and you don't need this kind of historic stuff.
Okay, so we'll remove that.
We'll include
You
that.
just put the date of 2024, but I don't think we need.
Superfluous.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
so we'll remove that.
We will all agree again through unanimous consent unless I hear any objections. So ordered. That brings us to the end of Dennis's revision document. So we obviously have revisions to the revisions, which we need to get as quickly as you can process them, Dennis.
Yeah, I'm going to work with Carol on it, right, Carol?
Yes, Dennis, we'll work on it tomorrow morning.
And-
Okay. As you know,
Carol-
I have COVID, so I won't be showing up in the office.
Yeah.
Okay. We can do this over the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, Carol,
Okay.
and you will notice the newly scheduled meeting for Thursday
I will post that tomorrow.
and try to get the notes up as Jeff has requested.
The minute.
The minutes, sorry. All right. That brings us to next item on the agenda, which is public speak. Does anyone have any items that they wish? Let me just unshare here. How do I do this? That's a good question. How do I unshare?
It's usually a button at the bottom, share screen button at the bottom. You can
Yeah,
stop.
well, that screen is gone, and all I have is a thumbnail of everybody's faces. That's interesting.
Well, Bob, if there's no public speak, I'd
Yeah.
like to make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See you all on Thursday.
All right,
Bye
thank
now.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
There it is. And we're off the air.